Compass Mining is your trusted partner in Bitcoin mining. Whether you're investing in one machine or thousands, our customizable solutions are tailored to meet your needs. We are your experts in Bitcoin mining, offering a platform where individuals and businesses can purchase hardware, host machines, and access a range of ancillary Bitcoin mining services. We also specialize in large-scale site development and data center operations. Discover more at compassmining.io and see how we can power your success today. Hey miners, welcome back to the channel McNallie Money, the official home of power mining analysis. Anthony and I are back home following an event-filled week in New York City, taking in the sights and sounds of Bitcoin Investor Week. And lucky for us, that was just in time to get a nice tweet out yesterday afternoon from Trump himself talking about the inclusions, next steps, and vision for his crypto strategic reserve. Now, understandably, this sent Bitcoin, along with the other listed cryptos, on an absolute tear last night, Bitcoin surpassing $94,000 US, with many of the other listed cryptos up anywhere from 20 to 30% plus. Now, the miners were widely expected to open in the double-digit green territory today. That's exactly what happened. However, they have started to retreat during today's session, and that's what we're going to be covering in today's podcast. In addition to that, we've got February production results out from Bitfarms, so a lot to talk about. Before we get into it, though, take a second, smash the like button, you guys. Big help to myself and the channel, specifically in getting this content to other people like you who may find value. If you're not already subscribed, McNallie Money, feel free to join and let us know in the comment section below what your thoughts were on Trump's crypto strategic reserve announcement, your outlook on the Bitcoin mining sector, and your overall feeling or sentiment towards Bitcoin as a whole. Now, with that being said, let's get into today's podcast. Okay, guys, so that's right. Monday midday here on the Power Mining Analysis podcast. Anthony, you and I made our way back to our respective hometowns following an event-filled week in New York City last week. Looking back, obviously went very quickly, but we were fortunate to meet with many of the management teams and companies that we cover closely in the sector.
Yeah, really good to catch up with a number of the teams there. So, yeah, IREN were at the conference, and we caught up with their IR team there. Tyler Page, we had a great session with Tyler Page. Went to see his office, the Cypher offices in New York, and I've got to admit, probably the best office space of any of the miners that we've been to up to now. One Vanderbilt, which is a prestigious, fairly new building actually, and Cypher managed to get in that building during the COVID period, I believe, when the rents were really cheap. And so they managed to get a really good deal there, but the views were amazing. 54th floor, looking over the New York landscape. I'd certainly swap my current view for that view every day of the week and twice on a Sunday.
Most definitely. Now, just in time, we made our way back on Saturday. Yesterday, you and I started texting each other kind of late morning, Calgary time or Mountain Standard Time. We noticed Bitcoin was spiking out of the blue to high 80s range, up into the 88,000, 89, 90, 91. Now, Bitcoin continued to push higher throughout the day. You sent me a screenshot shortly after with some of the other cryptocurrencies we track on a regular basis. So Ethereum, Solana, and Cardano also spiking in a big way, Anthony. We started scouring the internet, and lo and behold, Donald Trump had tweeted out yesterday with some additional direction on his strategic crypto reserve. So this was really the catalyst a lot of us have been waiting for. The administration itself has been virtually silent on Bitcoin and this crypto reserve ever since the inauguration speech itself. Lo and behold, a few weeks later, we're now starting to get some direction, not only on which of these coins are going to be included, but also on some of the next steps and sequencing of events here.
Yeah, and that tweet that came out yesterday from the president, basically saying he loves Bitcoin and Ethereum. I mean, we've been to the conference in Nashville. He talks about crypto at the conference. It's amazing when you get people with the following that the president has and the likes of Elon Musk in 2021 when he talked about Tesla and Bitcoin in the same sentence, and it moved the Bitcoin price. Well, yesterday, with the president announcing this and the fact that he wants, cryptocurrency to be the heart of the reserve. And that news sent Bitcoin and some of the larger cryptocurrency coins into orbit. I mean, I looked at Cardano, it was up over 60% at one point yesterday. Sol was up over 20%. Ethereum and Bitcoin both double-digit gains yesterday. And, we were chatting and looking forward to doing this podcast today because it was a real bullish podcast in the making. Very, very straightforward. But, 24 hours later, or less than 24 hours later, and we're sort of having a different podcast than we were yesterday. So, interesting how things can change in 24 hours.
It certainly is. Now, we'll come on to some of that mixed emotion or trading in a second here, Anthony, but interesting the sequence of events from Trump's account yesterday, coming out with his initial tweet stating that XRP, Solana, and Cardano would be included in the strategic reserve. Now, this immediately prompted some of my friends in the XRP army to start texting me, and Trump quickly followed that up, stating, no, you guys, obviously I will include Bitcoin and Ethereum. I love both of those cryptocurrencies as well. So interesting, he almost assumed Bitcoin, Ethereum would be included without actually even mentioning them in that initial tweet.
Yeah, absolutely. But it was, it was implied, and the increases in all those coins. Even the likes of Dogecoin was up over 20%, but Cardano was getting the brunt of the gains there yesterday. Over 61% in one day at one point.
Now, interesting as a proxy to this, Anthony, if you take a look at the Trump family holdings via their World Liberty Financial, lining up very nicely with the announced cryptocurrencies in this tweet. So looking over his portfolio here, about $267 million worth of Ethereum, $67 million worth of WBTC, which is a one-to-one wrapped Bitcoin equivalent, and about $37 million in USDC, which is an Ethereum blockchain. So as we've talked about previously, Trump, a businessman at heart, definitely taking part in this crypto rally.
Yeah, absolutely, and some significant amounts there. Well over 300 million invested in crypto space. And I mean, yes, he's a rich man, but that's a significant amount, probably of his total asset value there to be put into this. And if you look at the actual what he paid at what the fund paid at the start and what it's worth now, probably down close to 80 million. But based on the current prices, so he was getting some of these coins significantly higher than we're at the moment. Bear in mind, they do have more than just Ethereum and Bitcoin. They have some USDC, they have some Tether, they have some Tron, Aave, and some Chainlink as well. So quite a significant portfolio altogether. But as I say, when they bought those coins, they were significantly higher. Majority was significantly higher. Only showing a profit, and to be honest with you, only a slight profit in Tether, and US DC is pretty much flat. And you'd expect that because they do track the dollar. So but the majority of the rest of the coins are significantly down in the millions. So the president, as well as many of us that are on the channel, not having such a great period at the moment, but there's plenty of optimism out there, and we'll come on to more about that as we go through the presentation.
We certainly will. And as you say, Anthony, even the president, with all of his insight, unable to time the bottom here perfectly. And that's why you and I are fairly upbeat today, despite the pullback we're seeing in the markets. Obviously on the right track, and this strategic reserve coming to fruition in front of our eyes. Now, simultaneously to all of that, the White House also put out a document this week, David Sachs holding the first crypto summit. So a lot of activity starting to pick up quite rapidly in the crypto Bitcoin space, really all of a sudden here.
Yeah, absolutely. It looks like it's getting momentum ever since the announcement of the election. Really, we've seen so many positive press releases come out. This is just another one there. So the White House will host the first ever crypto summit effectively this Friday. And the attendees for that summit will be some of the prominent founders, CEOs, investors from the crypto industry, as well as member of the president's working group on digital assets. So we know that Senator Loomis is the chair of the digital assets working group. And so I would expect her to be there. She was at the conference in New York. She gave an update from what she was seeing at the moment. Fairly positive from her stance. She talked about not only at the national level, but also at the state level, what was happening with regards to the strategic reserve. But this will be a big summit on Friday. It's going to be chaired by the White House AI and crypto czar David Sachs, and administered by the working group's executive director Bo Hines. So something to look forward to, and hopefully we'll get some updates from that summit, which will hopefully again give us some positive output for the for Bitcoin price.
Yeah, most definitely. Looking forward to those details. How much we would pay to be a fly on the wall of that meeting, Anthony, to hear what's going on in that inner circle. Now, you just mentioned the states are continuing to progress. We were fortunate to grab some time with Dennis Porter as well down in New York. Got to get an update on his policy and efforts with the Satoshi Action Fund. Now, as you can see here, Utah is really one step away from enacting this bill. We've also seen some big numbers coming out of other states. Florida looking to invest up to $1.5 billion in Bitcoin or strategic Bitcoin reserve equivalency. So as you say, Anthony, and similar to what we've seen in the likes of cannabis and some other emerging industries, that states are really taking a lead role in this adoption.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when we had one of our recent podcasts, it had something like, close to 20 states pushing this bill through. So, yes, there's been a few states that have effectively said no, but the great majority of those that have started the process are still in the process. And as you rightly say, Utah only one step away. There was a very bullish output at the conference from the likes of Texas as well. And bear in mind, Texas and the likes of California, if they were to go through it, these two states here are, have a larger GDP than Canada. So, significant undertones to Texas. A lot of mining happening in Texas. In fact, probably more mining in Texas than anywhere else in the world when you consider how many of the public miners are down there, and there's a lot of non-public miners also mining in Texas. Great amounts of energy down there in terms of renewable energy, which miners are clinging to, and the price is really good as well. I mean, we've seen the results come out from a number of miners, and they've shown that mining in Texas was very, very good in the last 3 months of 2024.
Most certainly was. And David Bailey, the organizer of Bitcoin Magazine and the Bitcoin Conference, we ran into him at PubKey as well in New York. So really a star-studded cast there, putting out a tweet saying China is now working double time on their strategic reserve in light of these announcements, holding multiple closed-door meetings. So all of that setting the stage, Anthony, for what we expected to be a very favorable double-digit green day for the miners. Penny Ether was on Twitter last night posting the early action in pre-market. And as you can see here, really a sea of green across the board, with many of the miners we cover up in excess 10, 12, 15% leading into Monday's session.
Yeah, I mean, totally green across the board in pre-market, but, obviously, as we've highlighted at the beginning of the podcast, Bitcoin price, dropped considerably, and many of these miners now are in red positions now. And I look at where I am now compared to Friday, and I'm a couple of percent down on Friday's close. So no real gain. Although the Bitcoin price is higher, the mining stocks have dropped, and that's the volatility of mining stocks. Bitcoin's very volatile, and to move like it did yesterday, 10% higher in one day, that's a big increase. There's not many days where Bitcoin drives 10% in one day. The volatility of Bitcoin compared to the miners is totally different. I mean, if you gave the volatility of Bitcoin like a 3, you'd have to give the volatility of miners probably a 6 or a 7. And so it doesn't take much percentage in move on Bitcoin price to get the miners really moving as well. But that has an effect. If the Bitcoin price drops, then obviously the mining stocks have been dropping significantly, and that's what's happened today, to be honest. So Penny's tweet there was was one that we were hoping that would stay the distance, but I'm afraid as soon as the market opened today, we saw a push down from where Bitcoin price was at its high in pre-market, down to lower than 90,000.
Compass Mining makes Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone. Start mining in as little as 48 hours with our turnkey hardware, online and mining directly to your Bitcoin wallet within 2 business days. Find out more at compassmining.io and get started now. Yeah, we were being accused of jinxing the market last night, Anthony. As I'm currently recording, Bitcoin now falling sub 88,000, currently trading at 87,882. Now, you and I mentioned earlier, we're not too worried about this situation. And the real reason for that is we were promised by Trump that Ross would be freed on day 1. That happened on day 2. So that gave us some inkling that maybe this strategic reserve would come through in the end. Again, very quiet, almost eerily quiet on the topic over the first few weeks in office. And then this flurry of activity this week, right after we've seen the Trump family holdings in crypto specifically surge to an all-time high. So, Anthony, it seems we're on the right trail of breadcrumbs, so to speak. In terms of timing here, we may have to wait a little bit longer than we would like, but the master plan or game theory of Bitcoin adoption really is playing out as expected.
Yeah, absolutely. But it started a month, a new month, March, and today we've had the first update out, and we get the first update out every month from Bitfarms. Always put their operational update on the first working day of the month. And today, Monday, the 3rd of March, is the first working day, and by first thing this morning, Eastern Time, Bitfarms released their February numbers. And there's always anticipation with Bitfarms at the moment because they were one of the miners that didn't achieve their target for 2024, which was an ambitious target of 21 exahash. They did let the market know in advance of the end of the year that they were going to not reach it, and they set a new target of about 18 exahash by the middle of this year, and came out with the reasons as to why that target had changed. They'd had some difficulty with some of the miners they'd received, some of the T21 miners, which initially we had Ben on the podcast, had been performing really, really well, but then there was batches of them that weren't performing. So Bitfarms decided to get those machines upgraded to S21s, and obviously the time of the problems with the T21s and the delivery of the S21s created a period where obviously the hash rate wasn't going to increase as quickly as Bitfarms liked. But when you look at February's update, they mined 213 Bitcoin, which was a 6% increase on January. Bear in mind, February is only 28 days, so already we're thinking they've increased the hash rate. Well, they did increase the hash rate. So their total energized hash rate, so that's every miner plugged in at the end of February, was 16.2. That was a 7% increase on what they had at the end of January. More importantly, we want to know what their average operational hash rate, because we're in these months now where miners have been curtailing because of the local demand for electricity. Bitcoin miners are good citizens in this business. They turn off the machines when the domestic demand requires it, and they let the domestic demand use it. And then when that falls, miners are able to switch back on again and utilize the available power provided. So average operational hash rate increased by 20% between January and February. So they've managed to get their average operational hash rate up to 13.4, previously at 11.2. Power remained the same at 437 megawatts in total. Efficiency remained the same at 20, and that's one of the lowest efficiencies we've got. So, we've talked many times, get your efficiency, 20 or sub 20, get the your lowest energy available, and those two things will give you the cheapest price or direct price to mine, or direct cost, sorry, to mine a Bitcoin. So Bitfarms certainly moving in the right direction. They've got the results coming out in just over a week's time, so we'll get Ben on the podcast and he'll be able to talk us through those. In terms of HODL, they increased their HODL now. They've now got 1,260. They sold 75. That gives them a value of their HODL of $106 million. Now, bear in mind, they had obviously 9% less in their HODL during the month of January, but the closing price of Bitcoin at January was over 93,000. The closing price in February was 84,000. So you can see January's HODL was actually, at 10% higher than the February hodl, and that's because of the price of Bitcoin. So this is where, the issues will start occurring now for those companies that hodl. If Bitcoin price doesn't get back to 93,000 by the end of March, then you're going to have a quarter where some of these miners, under the FASB rules, will be actually having to highlight an unrealized loss. We know that the Bitcoin price during the last 3 months of 2024 was around about 84,000. The average revenue achieved from Bitcoin was 84,000. And we know that most of the miners, even if you don't include the FASB rule, weren't able to make a profit. Only IREN and Hive Digital at the moment have made a profit taking into account all costs. If you strip out the gain that CleanSpark achieved and the likes of Riot achieved and Marathon achieved, then those companies would have made a loss had it not been for the FASB rules that gave them significant gains because they've got a significant amount of Bitcoin on the balance sheet. This will work in the opposite direction come the end of March, should the Bitcoin price be lower than 93,000, which was the price at the end of December. So that's when they'll be able to book the gain. Now, obviously, we've spent 20 minutes on this podcast talking about the positivity around Bitcoin. So we've still got 4 weeks to go, but I just want to give people a little bit of a heads up. When they're doing their due diligence, is to take everything into account. Don't just take the fact of how many Bitcoins mined, take into account a lot more of the metrics that we discuss. In terms of other items that they provided an update on, they're now very close to completing the acquisition of Stronghold Mining, which occurred having had a successful shareholder vote, which Stronghold shareholders voted overwhelmingly to support. That, when you think about also they're selling the Paraguay site to Hive Digital as we speak now, so that's on track also to be completed by the end of this quarter. And these two transactions, from Ben's perspective, the CEO, will improve their energy portfolio and transform the company into a North American energy and compute infrastructure company. Now, Bitfarms, this last sort of 5 or 6 months, has started to talk more about high performance computing, and they've just actually announced the new Senior Vice President of Infrastructure, Craig Hibbard, who joins from Morphin Infrastructure Group, which is another mining company, where he was the Chief Development Officer. He's got 25 years of experience leading large-scale real estate development projects, including recent rapid design and construction of over 200 megawatts of digital infrastructure for a US firm specializing in digital assets and HPC AI. So, a lot of these miners don't have the necessary skill and expertise to actually build high performance computing infrastructure, and those that have are the ones that are progressing well. So it's a good appointment for Bitfarms. They're moving into this space. They've got a lot of power. If you think about the Sharon facility in Pennsylvania, and also the fact now they've got these Stronghold mining sites as well to utilize. Ben did indicate that, if there was HPC opportunities, he'd certainly look at it. And now he's building a team around him to sort of like deliver those promises to the shareholders who'll be, wanting to hear this positive news. So over and all, a good update from Bitfarms. They normally are the benchmark. So every mining company coming through now issuing their updates, it's always a comparison to Bitfarms. In 2024, they finished in terms of production by exahash. They were top. In 2023, they were top. And in 2021 and 2022, they were second place to Hive Digital, who reversed that position in 2023, 2024. So Bitfarms and Hive normally set the pace on these monthly updates. It'll be interesting to see now how other miners perform as we start getting updates in day by day.
Yeah, they certainly do, and a great update detail from Ben and team at Bitfarms. Now, one interesting observation, Anthony, we talk about the volatility of Bitcoin continuing to fall during the podcast here. Donald Trump's son has been very active on Twitter talking about Bitcoin. His current advice is to have some exposure to it. He also mentioned how interesting it was to have that major announcement from his father on a Sunday afternoon while the capital markets were closed. But interestingly enough, as these US markets start to come online and all of the various different financial tools and levers they have at their disposal, we're now seeing Bitcoin under pressure. So just wanted to bring up that observation. we've often talked about that effect coming on Monday mornings, Anthony. We see extreme buying pressure over the weekend, and as soon as these U.S. equity markets open, seems to change the tail of the tape quite dramatically.
Yeah, it's been a regular occurrence lately, and this is a challenge for people in the space. It's not for the faint-hearted. We've said many times. We've seen a lot more red days this year than we've seen green days. But as I say before, I'm still waiting for the news story that the bad news story, because we haven't had any. It's all been very positive certainly since before the election, and then since the election it's got even more positive, with these states getting very, very close now to approving a strategic reserve at the state level. And we know that at the national level the president and his team around him are very focused on delivering at the national level. And if the US deliver this is going to be the starting point for the rest of the world to follow suit.
It certainly is. So a major catalyst coming to fruition here Sunday afternoon, leading to some big volatility in the market this morning. As a glass half full ending to the episode, you just mentioned it's the start of the month, which is why we got the Bitfarms production report. Hard to believe how quickly February went this year, but that also means we're into the final month of Miner Madness 2.0. And Anthony, although we're not doing very good in terms of percentage return, you and I are making our way back up into that top 3 podium position as we finished with Miner Madness 1.0.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been really positive to have that running at the same time. Just take your mind off the Bitcoin price some days. Believe it or not, there is nobody in positive territory with Miner Madness 2, and bear in mind we had a couple of candidates achieve significant increases in Miner Madness 1. So this last quarter hasn't been as good. The leader at the moment is W. Peel, and the value of his $300 investment is $272.40. So he's dropped about 9.2%, and he's leading the competition. It's going to be an interesting finish now. 28 days till the end of the competition. Will close on the 31st when the markets close. But at the moment, there's a little bit of catch up for some of these positions to get above that, into positive territory. If we look at the analyst board, it's been very, at one point me and you were leading the competition, then we dropped to nearly up the back of the competition. Now we're sort of heading back up there. So so many things can change in the space of a week. Last week, I think it was Agrippa Investments and Sam were sort of like leading from the analyst position, and they were sort of 6th overall. Well, they've dropped down to 93rd. So, and when you think they've both got the same choice of stocks, they've got IREN, Cypher, and CleanSpark. Three really, really good picks. On face value, IREN brought out some excellent results. CleanSpark had good results as well, and Cypher also. So 3 good positive selections there, but 93rd. The spread between the analysts is very, very interesting. There's only less than $17 in value separating all the analysts. So a lot of movement can still happen in this sort of like last 4 weeks, and it's going to be an interesting one. If the Bitcoin price takes off and miners break off, we might see a few people finish in positive territory. We'd like that because it's obviously we want people to be still interested in buying the mining stocks. We've been in this space for a number of years now, and it can be a challenging time. We all do that. I look at my investment where it is now and where it was a month ago, and it's looking at two different portfolios. So, but 4 or 5 years in the space gives you some sort of ability to understand that these days happen, and there'll be periods where you have an opportunity to get back to where you were and maybe sell some shares on the way up.
Yeah, I think we'll be all right in the long term here, Anthony. As you say, about 4 weeks left in Miner Madness 2.0, about 3 weeks until you and I are back on the road down to Fort Lauderdale for mining disrupt. So again, should be an exciting spring here, you guys. No shortage of activity. Unfortunately, the Bitcoin miners have given us some trouble once again today. But as we say, on a macro level, the stage continues to be set for what we think should be a very bullish run here moving into the next few quarters. So Anthony, with that being said, let us know in the comments section below, how are you feeling about your portfolios today, you guys? Did you expect this pullback? Are you buying or adding to any of your positions? Feel free to hit the like button, subscribe. We'll see you back here tomorrow.